Hello and welcome to Are You Ready for the Future? I'm your host, Joe Santana. In this program, we talk with members of the CDO Power Circle about what they're doing in their DEI practices to address the challenges and opportunities of the new normal and what they're doing to future-proof their practices and their companies. The program aims to provide DEI leaders with ideas, insights, and inspiration from our members who are thought leaders. But before we go to our discussion with our guests in this session, let's first listen to a quick word about our sponsors. I'll see you on the other side. The future. It sounds like we're talking about tomorrow, but the future of DEI is here now. It runs at a relentless fast pace, and tomorrow will be even faster than today. Let's face it, CDOs can't keep up with all of it, especially not applying the same old pre-2019 practices. That's why you need yourself and everyone in your extended DEI team to gear up and get ready to operate like a fast-running, well-oiled machine. And that's why the CDO Power Circle delivers enriching programs to develop DEI leaders at every level of your organization, from the CDO and Office of DEI members through executive sponsors for your communities to your resource group leaders. We've got you covered. Here are just a few of the benefits your membership buys you. Access to our Sharpen the Axe sessions that give top DEI strategists cutting-edge skills and techniques that they can quickly put to use. Seats for you and all your executive sponsors and all your ERG leads in the ERG Power Talk discussions with today's top thought leaders. Unlimited seats for all the members of your extended DEI team to our Summer Virtual Academy. Monthly exclusive resource letters with timely articles and videos. And seats at the annual DEI Future Foresight Summit, where you get a glimpse at what next year and those that follow will bring, so that you can get ahead of the curve in planning for tomorrow. We also invest part of your membership fee in services that give back to the DEI community while providing you and your company with powerful and significant branding. For example, our weekly newsletter that curates signals from the new normal and the future, our ERG Power Talk podcast that provides hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free development and insight to ERG leaders across the globe, and our Are You Ready for the Future series, where we provide tips to other DEI leaders to help them get ready for the new normal and future-proof their practices. The CDO Power Circle, here for you because the future is right now. Our spotlight guest for today is CDO Power Circle member Nancy J. Didia, and she is the Executive Director, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Americas at Boehringer Ingelheim. Nancy, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Joe, it really is a pleasure and a delight to be here. And I'm looking forward to the discussion and the questions that will come from the audience. Joe and I have been talking about this for a couple of months. And for those of you that don't know, I've worked with Joe. He sort of mentored me into the healthcare industry when I moved from financial services 17 years ago into pharmaceuticals or my perspective. And again, I'll say these are my views and my perspective overall, and also share a little bit about what we're doing at BI as well.
I do remember those years ago when we were in that meeting and we both found each other and started talking about the fact that we both worked for German companies in the United States and talking about how DEI needed to be developed in that particular environment. And it was a great discussion. So Nancy, tell us a little bit about what Boehringer Ingelheim does.
Thanks for that question. So Boehringer Ingelheim is a privately held, family-owned, for more than 140 years, life sciences, pharmaceutical, and animal health contract manufacturing company. We have more than 50,000 employees worldwide. Our headquarters are in Ingelheim, Germany, which is about 20 minutes north of Frankfurt. And Boehringer is the family name. So we are at the fourth generation of Behringers running the company. So in a lot of ways, we are a hidden gem, sort of a hidden secret, but most people don't know a lot about us by name, by company name, but probably more so by brand. So on the human pharma side, we are in the cardiovascular metabolic area and also some respiratory cancer. Some of the products that you may be aware of on the human side, if you watch football on Sundays or 60 Minutes, you may have seen Jardiance commercials, which is for type 2 diabetes. And on the animal health side, if you have a pet, my hope is that you're aware of some of our products, Frontline, NexGard, and we make many vaccines for 6 species around the world, including ruminants, cattle, equine, swine, poultry. So we keep the food chain healthy as well. And we like to keep the quality of life for our patients healthy and strong overall. So that's a little bit about the global piece. I oversee the US responsibilities with a tap into the Americas. I'm not responsible for the Americas anymore. We've had some changes, but we have about 10,000 employees in the US with more than 13 sites. 10 of those sites predominantly are animal health manufacturing locations as well. But we have employees based in every state in the US, including Puerto Rico, as well. And the headquarters in the US are Ridgefield, Connecticut, which is where I'm based.
So why is DEI critical to a company like yours? Why is it that this is so important to Boehringer Ingelheim?
Great question, Joe. I think 2 aspects of DEI come into play. One is the patients and customers that you serve. And also, when you think about it, there's a DEI strategy is both inside and also external. So it's more about what is the culture and the climate and processes that you create for your employees to thrive and be their best self. At the same time, how do you show up with your customers? And in our case, they're healthcare providers, health systems, veterinarian practices, the Banfields of the world, PetSmarts, all of these organizations that have veterinarian care. And the majority of what we're seeing specifically in vet medicine is many of the veterinarians coming out of vet school are women in general, and we're seeing a lot more LGBTQ veterinarians coming through, but we also recognize there's a shortage of racial diversity in that profession, and we are working very closely with academic institutions such as Tuskegee University, Ohio State University, to attract more diverse talent to this profession, because it's slowly, just like the aging baby boomers sort of dying out. We need to keep that diversity going. We also deal with a lot of ranchers and farmers on the animal health side, and the majority now are being taken over by family members, and believe it or not, in some cases, are being handed down to daughters. And we're seeing a lot of farmers that are female in general. So there's the whole view on how we engage and interact has to mirror how the world is evolving and changing. And, I think the most important aspect is when you think of animal health, unlike human pharma, there are only 4 companies in the world that are doing animal health. And of course, that's Boehringer Ingelheim, another company called Zoetis, another another called Elanco, and of course Merck. So the four of us pretty much are responsible for keeping the food chain healthy, the various medicines that are out there for your pets, your dogs, cats, and other exotic animals. So it's very important to have not only the diversity and equity in your workforce, but also in the way in which you engage with your existing customers and potential customers and patients. Because one last thing I'll say is that disease does not discriminate.
So the two things that I've heard are that this is important to you because A, it's your employee base that's evolving, but not only is your employee base changing, but like many other businesses, your customer base is changing too. Traditionally, I would imagine that men passed on their farm to their sons as opposed to daughters, or that mothers might be at some point passing it on to another daughter. So again, your marketplace is changing as well as your workforce composition. So what have you and your DEI practice done to date to address some of the new opportunities and challenges that have been raised by all this chaos that we call the new normal, where all the rules were thrown out the window and COVID-19 happened and George Floyd and all these things happened and everything changed so dramatically overnight, and it seems like change is coming faster and faster at us. So the new normal, as one of our friends and fellow CDO Power Circle members, Cheryl Battles, puts it, is sort of we're not where we were, but yet we're not where we're going either. We're sort of in this state of flux right now. So in that new normal state, what are some of the things that you and your team have done to address some of the opportunities and challenges?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And Joe, I've been in this space for more than 25 years now. And I have to say that 2020 was probably the most difficult year of my life and career, doing this work. And I think in that time frame, 2020, I mean, when you think about it, the pandemic started in March of 2000. Well, it started before that, but I think our shutdown started in March of 2020. And we were scrambling to come up with COVID protocols and ensure what our workplaces were going to do while keeping business running, ensuring that our patients were getting the medicine that they needed, really dealing with the whole quote unquote essential staff versus those that could work from home. And the people that worked in our labs, our scientists, our veterinarians that needed to be there to take care of ongoing development and research could not work from home. And how do we address that? How do we mitigate, because nobody was vaccinated, the spread of COVID without shutting down our practices? So we put together task forces. And ultimately, we mandated vaccination when they became available. We are a healthcare company, so we were a little bit more I think, aggressive than others about mandating as people came back to work. But that at the same time, we were in a rescue state. And what I would say is that now we're in a recovery mode. So that new normal is recovering from the disasters. And also, I think we're raising our head sort of out of that sand or bubble that we were in when we were all out of the office, to acknowledge the mental health impact the past 3 years has had on all of us, and that it's not a flip of the switch. It's not that simple to go from working from home and rearranging the way that you live and work, right? And work-life balance is not a question anymore. We are working and living in the same way that we have been for the past 3 years, but yet organizations are saying, come back to work now, come back to work. And I don't think we will ever get back to a normal, as you so well lay it out. It is a new normal, a new way of working, but we can't let go of the trauma, the post-trauma that people are carrying with them, and the social impact. I mean, we did have the Capitol insurgents go on, the impact that had on many people, and the continuation of this pandemic, right, and the impact it has on people's fears and concerns and mixed messages sometimes. So we adopted what we would call a moment, but come in for moments that matter. And what do you think happened when we said moments that matter? My view of a moment that matters and your view were different. So my view is if my boss is calling a staff meeting, I'm going in. Your view may be, well, we have staff meeting every 2 weeks, so I'm going to come in maybe once a month. And what was happening is we had a lot of sporadic people showing up when they wanted to, and we were losing a lot of collaboration. So what we try to do is that when there are, and it varies, so we don't have a company-wide stance on this. People in marketing may have different days that they come into the office versus HR or IT. And what we try to do, and I'll tell you, I have benefited from being in the office and not having to write an email, not having to IM someone, and just seeing someone in the cafe saying, hey, quick question. And I missed doing that for 3 years. But I honestly don't have set days when I go in. When I have meetings with senior leaders and my boss, I go in. And I try to schedule other meetings and other luncheons or ways to meet with people. But just to sum up, Joe, it's been a rough couple of years, and we've had to put processes, policies in place. And we just introduced, like many other companies, a different approach to what used to be EAP, but really dealing with social trauma, racial trauma, health issues, right? Caregiving concerns or care partner stress, and looking at what the past 3 years has changed in people's lives, and recognizing that the services that we were offering as benefits to our employees needed to be upgraded to deal with the current situation. And I do think moving forward that stress management and healthcare and mental well-being is going to be a factor that candidates look at. So what I was saying is that showing your support for mental health and well-being is not only important for attracting talent, but it's also a driver in retaining the existing talent that you have, that there's a sense that the organization is concerned about your wellness, your well-being. We do a pulse check around well-being, and on our global employee survey every year, we ask a question around employees' perception and view on the company's care and concern for their well-being. We have another one coming up in 2 weeks, but last year we came in the high 80s. And I think that, as a healthcare company, we've had mental health sessions where we've brought in trained social workers, psychologists to do sessions with our employees as well, virtually around the world. So they were open to people. And yes, we did get some of this data mostly through managers and anecdotal check-in and qualitative surveys that we were doing randomly to come together to say, this is an important metric, and it's important that we take action and provide that. And we also got some of the feedback from our ERGs as well, that they needed more support specifically on the racial trauma side. With respect to George Floyd and Asians, the anti-Asian sentiment, and our employees of the Jewish faith that were also experiencing anti-Semitism challenges in the marketplace, in the workplace. So some of it was bottom up, grassroots, and some of it was through our pulse checking.
So in addition to some of these changes that you see your organization has had to adjust to, that you've been part of helping them adjust to, as you look out at the future, Nancy, and you're looking at what's going on out there, what signals are you seeing? What things are you seeing that tell you that, hey, that's something that we're going to have to prepare for? And what steps are you taking to future-proof your company via your DEI practices in order to seize any potential opportunities as well as avoid any obstacles that are coming up?
Yeah, and Joe, I wouldn't expect any less of a question from you on that with where our future is heading. I think three things come to mind. One is governance and structure on DEI overall. And I think that the role of the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer has become the go-to person for everything. It never used to be that way. But full disclosure, I have been tapped into for personal support of talking to children and family members on what to do about George Floyd or certain situations. We become, leaders come to the CDIO and say, help me have this courageous conversation. We've never been tapped into more these past 3 years than ever. We also have people that are so passionate because of all these things going on that if you don't have a strong governance or centralization around your strategy and your focus or your framework, you're going to have a lot of popcorning of things going on out there that doesn't connect to your overarching strategy and doesn't move the needle, doesn't change. So I think governance is one. I think the second is crisis management. And with everything, and I'll speak for the US, but I can also speak globally. We have a world crisis going on with Ukraine, right? We have in Europe, we have issues going on in the Middle East as well with LGBTQ inclusion. We know that employees can be killed in certain countries because of their gender identity or sexual orientation, or their religious observance, their clothing, their whether they wear their clothing in a certain way or in public. So these are issues that actually conflict with an organizational's values, and typically the organizations are much more advanced and progressive than governments. I mean, that's true in the US. The US was ahead of the game, even the federal government, in creating more inclusive non-discrimination policies around gender identity, sexual orientation, before the federal government declared those as protected classes. So I think we're going to have to keep looking at crisis management and establishing a framework of maybe three buckets. Are we in a wait and see mode? Do we respond? Or do we get more information and wait and see? And I think that there has to be at the ready a group of people, whether it's senior leadership and the CDIO, that take that stance and that position, because there will continue to be, I am reluctant to say this, but there will continue to be mass shootings. There will continue to be other events. And I shudder to say this, like a George Floyd or things. There was just an insurgence in the Capitol in Brazil. So these things will happen, and organizations need to be at the ready to determine what the position is going to be. And I think that the most important anchoring that a company can embrace is, how does this ladder up or align with our values? And our values are pretty clear. It's respect, empathy, trust, and passion. And if you think about it, you recognize that any of the three things we talked about, the pandemic, George Floyd, the Capitol insurgents, all have impact on respect, empathy, and trust. Maybe passion, not so much, but those three. And we did take positions. When I say positions, we were concerned about employees' wellness. We denounced all forms of hate and racism. But when it came to, examples of the Supreme Court overturning the Roe v. Wade decision, we did not make a public statement about that. And so making a statement is a statement, not making a statement is a statement. Right. So I think those three things, having governance and a structure, and really working with your C-suite to ensure that the diversity team is staffed appropriately to do their work, and to move away from programmatic efforts, but more alignment to the marketplace, the strategy, and the future of the workforce.
Well said. It's interesting. You mentioned governance several times there. And recently I've been writing a lot about ESG in organizations, the impact it has. And one of the things is, if you look at some of the things that ESG, or environment, social, and governance measures look for, in many cases, they're a lot more aggressive than what the government is looking for. For example, in ESG, when they're looking at how you're doing in terms of attracting and retaining a variety of people, they're looking for the result, whereas what the government is looking for is good faith effort. So what the government is looking for is a lot weaker. And I think it's because, as you were saying earlier, Nancy, when you talked about why this was important to your organization, it's because for organizations, the results, which are having an effective way of attracting and retaining talent from across all demographics, empowering them to be successful for the organization, to produce the results that make the organization competitive, resonating with the market that they're serving as that market evolves. Those things require real results, as opposed to, for example, on the public sector, which is more of just show that you're being a good citizen and you're trying really hard. So I think that companies are now stepping up more to that, realizing that we really need to have these results. They're essential to our survival and our ability to thrive as organizations. They're not just a way of showing that we're a good company. They really are important to us. And so, Nancy, my last question to you is, what's that one piece of advice that you have for participants who want to future-proof their organization through their DEI practices?
The one piece is always engage your business and know what the business priorities are, because DEI is not a program, it's a strategy. And the more you look at it as a strategic imperative, the more credibility and advancement you'll have in driving the transformative change that's necessary to have a culture of belonging. Well, actually, belonging is the outcome of a diverse and inclusive culture. So if you have diversity and you have a culture where people can perform to their full potential with little to no barriers, you will have a sense of belonging where people feel valued, heard, listened to, and have that sense of purpose. So again, work closely with your business leaders, know what their pain points are, know what their issues are, and intersect and interject how you can help them be more successful with a DEI lens.
Fantastic. Nancy, thank you so much again for joining us today for this
My
session.
pleasure.
I truly appreciate it, as always.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe so that you can watch all of the discussions with our insightful guests. Again, I'm your host, Joe Santana. Thank you for tuning in.